What's a yowie? I'm gonna Google that really, because like all I'm thinking of, all I'm thinking of is, do you guys remember the Scooby-Doo movie? I think it was The Legend of the Vampire. There's 2 vampire ones, I think, but it was like the Yowie Yahoo. Do you guys remember that? Hey y'all, I am back to read more of your terrifying tales that you've sent in, and typically I pick like 5 stories and save them in a notes app so I can just like read them very quickly. But if you follow me on TikTok, you'll know that this week has been kind of chaos for me, so I am not prepared at all. We are gonna scroll through my stories and pick 5 random ones, and this video might be longer. I'm gonna cut that out, obviously, of me just zooming around, but yeah, this video is not laid out at all, and I ramble, so it's gonna be a long day for us. So get comfy, get a snack, and then come back and let's talk some scary stories. So I actually already filmed this first story once. My cats like kind of went crazy. I'll insert a clip here of what I was dealing with for 5 minutes. Hello. Do you want to come here? No? Okay. He doesn't know if I ever heard it. Hi, Squeak. What are you doing? She's coming. Hi, Squeak. That's why we call her Squeak, because she squeaks. But anyways, without further ado, let's read about the tree with 2 trunks. I've stumbled across your TikTok account and listened to all your stories, all very scary and also relatable. While I struggled with my beliefs on ghostly sightings, I know quite well that the world isn't black and white. I've also come across things that are not explainable. I've had many experiences, but the one that will haunt me the most would be the house I lived at with the tree on the side of the house with the 2 tree trunks. This story takes place in Wyoming. Me and my family moved into a poorer suburban neighborhood in the search of a new start. The house we ended up in was quite old and wasn't well taken care of. I was so young I don't remember the first day I moved in, but what I do remember is that first night. I woke up to noises and an eerie feeling in my stomach. I was not a scared child. I didn't fear ghosts or spirits, and the other houses I'd lived in prior even had some spiritual components, so being scared of something unknown was new. In the darkness, I found myself wandering up and down the halls where I eventually fell asleep in my sister's bed. It wasn't a while after that I heard a large piece of furniture being moved across the old hardwood floors. A sound of splintering wood and a heavy scrape, but this wouldn't be the only time my family would have to deal with something. As the years went on, undescribable things would happen. Lights being turned off, doors being slammed, things being thrown. Every part of a horror film essentially became our lives. For a while, I thought having things being shot across the room was somewhat normal, along with the physical attributes being formulated by the spirits in our home. My family became increasingly irritated. Parents always arguing, siblings always fighting. Every single day in my house had tension. It wasn't until I moved out that I realized it wasn't normal. One incident that would occur would be, as you described it, mimicking. My toddler brother would always speak on Daddy, my stepfather, and would always say small things like, Daddy's here, he's at the gate, or Daddy's in the hallway, when my stepfather would not be home. For a while, we chalked it up to toddler talk, until it didn't just start affecting my younger brother. For one instance, I had gotten out of the shower and made my way into my room, when my sister came bursting through the door asking, Why did you run? Are you okay? I was confused and had to ask her what she was talking about. And from there, she told me that she had seen me walk from the bathroom into the living room. She told me about how I had looked her right in the eyes and ran into my room, where then, of course, she chased me because she thought something was wrong. But I had never stepped foot into the living room. Ooh. Another situation that had stuck with me would be the banging. Because of the unexplainable things that occurred, my mother would cleanse the house with sage every month. While she did this mostly to ease my mind, I know she did it to ease hers as well. And because of everything going on with me and my siblings, we would all collect in my parents' room in the basement in order to sleep. This grew to be a custom, and we would never sleep on our own. One night after having our friends sleep over, me and my siblings decided to take the risk and sleep in the living room across from my parents' room. At about 2 a.m, banging was heard upstairs. It sounded like a crowd of people surrounding our walls and were banging with their fists. I was awakened by the vibrations on the walls. Alongside the banging, we heard furniture being dragged across the floors. My parents awoke and my stepdad grabbed protection and made his way up the staircase. As soon as he stepped onto the floorboards upstairs, it stopped. Pure silence. He made his way around the house where everything was fine. He came back downstairs and it started again. For the next year, every single night we would hear the same orchestra of banging and moving furniture. We all eventually drowned it out and dismissed it as white noise. Every single time my stepdad would carry protection up that narrow staircase, it would end, and then start back up again once he made his way into the basement. My mom's theory on this was because of the sage. She described it as it wanting back in. While there's hundreds of stories about this house, the one that sticks with me the most was the tree trunk. It all started when I'd fallen asleep on the couch watching Jessie. I had my back turned towards the living room. I was awakened to my arms getting prickly with goosebumps and my entire body feeling cold. I kept still and felt something watching me. I stayed in that position for hours, allowing whatever it was to watch me. Once the sun rose, I had the courage to turn and face whatever it was. But there was nothing. All I could make out was from the corner of my eye, a short, completely black figure with a large head. Moving forward, my mom wanted answers and seeked a medium. What the medium said will stick with me forever. As she wandered around the house, she came across the tree with 2 trunks. She examined the tree and told me that a small black creature lived in its branches. It had a large head with horns. This tree was right up against my room window. While it's been 4 years since I moved out, I always get an eerie feeling when talking about the house. My family stopped being tense and everything seemed to go back to the way it was. I've always believed the things that lingered beneath the shadows and floorboards of that home weren't actually connected to the house. They were connected to my mom, like a forbidden secret being held behind the walls. I hope I never come across what it was again. And I don't know if I said this already, but they attached pictures. You saw them throughout the thing. That was terrifying. Also, I never get stories from Wyoming, which is weird. So if you have stories from Wyoming, please send them to me, and I will even do like a little like full Wyoming video, kind of like I did with Michigan, because I never read Wyoming stories. That's so fascinating. Okay, let me hunt down a next story. Story number 2. I'm 61 and I grew up in northern Appalachians in southwestern Massachusetts in the small town of Blandford. I have 2 direct experiences that really stood out for me as a teenager. A good friend of mine had passed just before my 16th birthday. About a week or so later, I woke up crying in the middle of the night, really missing her. I was lying on my stomach and suddenly someone started rubbing my back, humming softly and saying, "Shh." I calmed down and drifted back to sleep. I thanked my mom in the morning for coming in and helping me, but she hadn't. Neither had my dad or my sister. I believe it was my father's mom who had lived with us prior to her passing, whose bedroom I'd inherited. Another thing that happened was at my aunt's house in a different town. Her husband was in the hospital and we were visiting her and my cousins. I was going up the stairs to use the bathroom. I could see the primary bedroom from upstairs. My uncle's bureau opened up on its own and one of his folded shirts came out of the drawer and drifted over to me and dropped onto their bed about 5 feet from the dresser, still neatly folded. I always felt like I was being watched in that house. My aunt just said, "Oh yeah, that's just George." In my current house, occasionally someone sits down on the edge of my bed while I'm in it. I can feel the weight, but if I put my foot down, there's nothing. Another time, while my dad was still alive, I was out at the computer on my front porch when I distinctly heard my back door open and my father saying hello. There was no one there. At the same time, my sister living down in Connecticut at that point also heard him saying hello and she smelled his aftershave. I have sinus problems and have no sense of smell. I had called my sister a few minutes after my experience to tell her, and she was like, "Oh, I was just going to call you." We got in touch with Dad immediately and told him to make sure to get his flu vaccine. After Dad passed, on a day he normally would have came to the house because my kids had the day off from school, I was down in the cellar getting my clothes out of the dryer when I heard my back door open and a hello in his voice. I bolted up the stairs to a closed back door and my chocolate lab Sophie stilling in front of the door, staring and wagging her tail. I also wanted to let you know you and your husband remind me so much of my oldest and her husband. They got married Halloween 2020 and are also very much into scary stuff. She's currently battling breast cancer but is doing well. I will send along a photo if you don't mind. Stay safe. Oh, that's nice. I got sent this in February 2023, but if you happen to see this, I hope your daughter is doing so well. I wish her all of the best strength and luck that there is. This story comes from Danny, and this story isn't actually Danny's, it is Danny's grandmother, Bee's. When Bee was younger, she played with a Ouija board with her siblings. She was living in California at the time with her large family. During the game, she had asked the question along the lines of, "Who will my husband be?" And the board began to spell out a last name. Her siblings then teased her because her last name was going to be something so funny. I'm not going to share the last name because that seems very personal and I don't want to give out that information. But it's a last name I personally have never heard. It's different. I like it though. Years later, when my grandpa had been in the Air Force and stationed in California, he met my grandmother while she was working on the base. They were married, had 4 kids, and several grandchildren. His last name, the same name that was spelled out on the Ouija board so many years prior. Though this was a short story compared to the others on your page, I thought it would be a nice break between the more grim stories. I often think about the story she told me. If you do post this, if you could tag me, that'd be great. And they gave their tag. So I'm going to crop this and make sure that this story goes on TikTok as well. I hope it's okay that I shared it on YouTube too. That was so cute. Like, what are the odds? That's terrifying. Stuff like this, I'm like, the Ouija boards definitely work. Like, outside of my own experiences, stories like that are just way too common. All right, story number 3. This video is 17 minutes long. Like, I know it's not for you guys because I'm going to be like, you know, editing, but 17 minutes. I've been watching your videos for quite some time and have finally plucked up the courage to share my own paranormal experiences. I would like to stay anonymous if that's okay. A lot of people I know think it's rubbish and don't believe me and don't believe in the paranormal. I'm from England. I'm 26 years old now, but this occurred when I was either 12 or 13. I was left home alone for the first time. I hadn't really had any paranormal experiences in this house prior to being home alone. Maybe my parents being non-believers kept me safe. But I have always kind of believed, but this encounter made me a firm believer. I was in my bedroom upstairs watching a film on my little VCR player with my dog. He was a Jack Russell, so he was kind of small. My bedroom door was on a little landing to the right of the stairs, and the bathroom was directly at the top of those stairs. All of a sudden, my dog jumped up from the bed, stood at the top of the stairs facing the bathroom. It wasn't particularly dark. It was around 4 p.m., so it was still kind of light. He stood facing this bathroom, all tense and in a kind of attack stance. I wasn't really sure what was going on. I thought maybe he heard a sound in there, but he stood there for about a minute, and then all of a sudden, he started growling and barking. The window was closed, so he couldn't have heard anything outside, and honestly, this was really freaking me out. My bed was parallel to the door, so I could see the landing and my dog from the bed, and I just kind of froze. The energy around the house and around me suddenly felt different, like the air had gotten thicker and heavier. It felt a presence, for sure. My dog had stopped barking and had gone off downstairs after a couple minutes of growling and barking. After about 15 minutes of being frozen, I finally found the courage to move on my bed. I put my hand face down on the bed and said, "If there is something here with me, please touch my hand." And then I felt a cold breeze brush my hand over the bed. I was feeling really scared at this point, and then my parents put their key in the knob and the energy around me shifted back to normal. I didn't tell them about this as I knew they wouldn't believe me, so I kept quiet about it and my dog was fine for the rest of the day. But that night, I vividly remember I was laying in bed not thinking much of what had happened with my dog in my hand. It had sort of gone from my mind, but as I was falling asleep, I felt a hand come up from the bottom of my bed, touch my foot, and then retreat. I've never told anyone about that, but this hand felt so solid I thought it was my older brother playing a trick on me. But when I finally found the courage to get up and look at the floor of the bottom of my bed, there was nothing. This hand that had touched my foot genuinely felt like a real human hand, just very cold. Since then, I've always put the bottom of my duvet solidly under my feet or had a blanket at the bottom of my bed at my feet. I don't know what my dog could see in that bathroom or what touched my foot that night, but I've been a firm believer of the paranormal since then. Yeah, that's something to keep in mind. Like, I know you weren't asking for advice, you were just sharing stories, but just like a general rule of thumb, try not to ask these things to touch you. Like, it's different if you have a candle lit and you're like, hey, make the flame do this or whatever. But once you kind of give things permission to touch you, they'll keep doing it and it's not fun. So just like a rule of thumb, if any of you guys ever come across that, try not to tell them to do that. This next one is a story from Australia. I think this is the 4th story. I just wanted to share some experience I had both alone and with my husband. Back in 2015, we were managing a ski lodge during the winter. I was the chef and my husband managed the guests. Before the season began, it was just us there. We would hear footsteps on the stairs and internal doors slamming shut. We thought nothing of this until later in the season. A member told us that a 16-year-old boy who was a member passed after falling off the lift. Again, we didn't even think of it. After the season, we were getting the place ready to close down and so many things happened. We would always stay together, just had a terrible feeling all the time. The CD player would turn off even if it were unplugged, and flies would pass mid-air. Strange stuff. Got out of there as soon as we were done. The year before that season, we were camping in the Victorian High County, our mountainous region. We're driving at around 2 a.m. and came around a bend and saw a massive yowie walking across the road. Had to stop so it could pass. It looked at us. We looked at it. Frightening. We hiked and explored the area over the next few days and forgot about it until we did a night hike. It was dark on our hike back. We had torches, but we had them off and were talking quietly. I laughed loudly suddenly, and just off the road there was the most spine-chilling roar, nothing like we've ever heard, followed by thumping and trees crashing. We ran the whole way back and stayed in the hut that night. We've never told a soul about this until now. Oh, I am honored. I am honored. Thank you for sharing that with me. That's so scary. What's a yowie? I'm gonna Google that really, because all I'm thinking of is, do you guys remember the Scooby-Doo movie? I think it was The Legend of the Vampire. There's 2 vampire ones, I think, but it was like the Yowie Yahoo. You guys remember that? Yowie is one of several names for an Australian folklore entity that is reputed to live in the outback. Let's see what it looks like. The yowie is usually described as bipedal, hairy, and ape-like mythical creature standing upright between 6 feet and 12 feet. The yowie's feet are described as much larger than a human's, but alleged yowie's tracks are inconsistent in shape and toe number. And the descriptions of yowie foot and footprints provided by yowie witnesses are even more varied than those of Bigfoot. Okay, so it's kind of like Bigfoot. Okay, that's what I was reading this and I was like, it kind of sounds like Bigfoot. Like kind of messing you up. Look at that. It's a statue for him. Slay. This is going to be long-winded. I apologize. There's just so much to say. My grandparents owned a house. My grandfather passed away when I was 16. I'm 21 now. He was bedridden and couldn't do anything without assistance. The house they lived in always felt safe and filled with love. It was my home away from home and my actual home for a long time when my family went through a rough patch. The feeling of someone watching us started before my grandfather passed, but started while he was sick. It felt cold and scary, like someone was always watching you out of the corner of their eye. My grandmother passed away when I was 20. The house was left to her children to be sold and split between the 3 of them, my mother included. Ever since that property has been in their possession, things have gone wrong. Really wrong. My daughter took a trip with me up there to see the home, more for nostalgia than anything. She was 1 at the time, and the very same day she ended up in the hospital. My uncle's son has gone blind, and my mom and brother's car broke, unfixable, leaving us in the middle of nowhere with not a lot of money to get any other mode of transport. My mom and her brother and sister have had to jump between so many estate agents because it just won't sell and things keep going wrong with the estate agents. The lady buying it was concerned that it had a flood risk even though it hadn't flooded in well over 30 years. It was just still on file from where the whole street flooded years ago. My mom and her siblings assured her it wasn't going to flood as it hadn't in well over 3 decades. We woke up this morning and the whole street is flooded again. My grandparents' house having it the worst. Is this all just bad luck or is there something happening? There's been several instances in this house itself that has made me believe something is there. I just need someone to help me. I don't know what's happening. Okay, so this is just, I have thoughts, but I also want you guys to keep in mind that I don't know. You know, this is just my theory, and I'm gonna clip this and also put it on TikTok so more people can weigh in. It sounds like maybe, especially your grandfather, had an arrangement with something not so great to keep it at bay, and then once he got sick and couldn't keep up whatever he was offering, whatever he was doing to, you know, keep this, whatever it is, calm, havoc started unleashing, whether it be an entity, some sort of curse, a hex. It sounds to me like it may not be the house itself. It may be a bloodline type thing. And I am definitely not the person that can help with that. I know there are many people on TikTok that definitely can. I don't know about here, but I will clip this to see. That's what it sounds like to me. That's way too much to just be bad luck in my opinion. I don't think coincidences are, you know, they don't happen like that. That's too much to just be a coincidence. That's just, it's like it's forcing, the house is forcing itself to stay in your family. So whatever happened to become, it involves the house, like for sure. I don't know if that's where whatever this is residing, if it is some sort of entity, or if that is where, if it is some sort of like curse or something, that is like where that object is, whatever it may be. There's so much that it could be. But I know there are definitely some practitioners that can help you out with that. I wish I knew more about it. I do need to do more research and talk to more people about it. But that is what it sounds like to me. I wish I could tell you how to fix it. I don't know. I have no idea. But like I said, hopefully someone will. And yeah, that is a lot. I am so terribly sorry that that's happening to you. But I wish you all of the luck, and hopefully someone will be able to help you. It is just, unfortunately, it is not me, but I will get your story out. I can help you with that. I can help get your story out. But, ooh, that made me feel weird reading it. I don't like that. I feel weird. Do you guys feel weird after hearing it? Okay, anyways. Okay, well, that is it for today. I left you guys on a very scary note, but I hope you guys have a fantastic day. If you have any advice for especially that last story, please leave it in the comments below. And yeah, we will see you guys next week. Who's we?